Lord. We're going to be looking at these three this morning. Turn with me to the first one, Psalms 130. My soul waits. Psalm 130. Now, this particular passage offers two insights I want us to think about before we start reading it. The first is how he talks about God coming to him and how he goes to God. Beginning of verse 1, out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord, O hear my voice, let your ears be attentive to the voice of my pleas for mercy. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, O Lord, who could stand? But when you're there, there is forgiveness, that you may be feared. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in his word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than watchmen for the morning, more than watchmen for the morning. O Israel, hope in the Lord, for with the Lord there is steadfast love, and with him is plentiful redemption, and he will redeem Israel from all her iniquities. The idea of communication is a two-way street. I can't go over to this brick wall over here and begin to talk with it and wonder why I'm not getting anything back. It does not listen. It does not have insight. It cannot talk back. When we are communicating with someone, we expect them to come a certain distance towards us and us to come a certain distance towards them. Likewise, sometimes we forget that God has come to us. It's easy in times of sorrow and sadness to look at God. You see a lot of Psalms where David cries out to God, where are you, God? I need you, God. You've abandoned me, God. It's easy for us to get that mentality. But if we step back from our life and look at the broad scope of things, we'll see that God has come 85% of the way to us. He already sent his Son to die. He gave us salvation. He gave us redemption. He gave us strength, peace, and hope. He gave us everything we're going to need. All he asks in return is that we go to him just a little bit. Ask for him when we need it. Ask for his help. And thank him when he's done great things. So God has come to us, but the second point is that we need to go to him. In verse 5 and 6, he alludes to the idea of a watchman. In this particular time, I love history. So whenever I get any chance to study history for a sermon, I get excited. In this particular time, watchmen were key to the defense of a city. There would be usually 4 or 5 towers on each corner of the walls. And in each one of these towers, there would be 4 men sitting on each side, facing each direction. In each one of these towers, there would be a bell. And anytime they saw anything, whether it be an army, or a storm, or a plague of locusts, or anything, they would alarm the city, and they could prepare accordingly. But they were the only thing separating what was coming with what's going on. They were that barrier that could see things coming and could alarm everyone while still being able to be protected. Likewise, our souls are our watchmen. Are they watching for God? Are they sitting there day after day, looking out, excited, anticipating the next chance we get to encounter God? Whether it be through personal prayer at night, whether it be through Bible study, or whether it be as a church, is our soul looking out to that? Is our soul longing for that? Like the watchman ready day in and day out, waiting for something to change, is that our soul? Waiting for our chance to be with God? That word longing that is used throughout Psalms, I actually know this, my dad taught me this, is the same word that means to thirst in the Greek. To thirst. Now, have you ever been thirsty? And I'm not talking about a little dryness in the throat, like just a second, thank you for that, by the way, just a second ago. I'm talking about thirst, where you haven't had water for days, and your body's shutting down. I haven't experienced that. So I did some research, and I read an account of someone who experienced this kind of thirst. It's actually more dangerous for you to thirst than the actual lack of water. It's more damaging. Because psychologically, your brain shuts down. That's why people in deserts that haven't drinking for days begin to see things. They begin to see pockets of water. It drives you into madness. Where the only thing that you can think about is water. I need water. I want water. So when the psalmist writes things like, as the deer pants for the water, so I long after you, what he's saying is, my body needs you. My mind, my soul, my heart needs you. If our soul is the watchman, and we miss out on a chance of worship, or we're not as strong in our worship as we should be, do we long for God? Is our heart and our soul shutting down without Him? Where there's a pain in us that we know we need to go back to Him? Do we have that kind of love and passion for Him? I can tell you most of the time I don't. It's hard. It's hard to develop that kind of passion. But it's something that, if you look at the Psalms, it's a beautiful thing to have. A passion for God so much that you want Him all the time. You need to learn more about Him. You need to develop a relationship with Him. And when you do, you experience great happiness all the time. But when you don't, you have a need for Him. Is that the mentality we have when it comes to our congregational worship and our personal devotion? Where we're excited, we're waiting, we're looking forward to, and we need these times of uplifting? If not, it's something we need to evaluate and see what we can do to change. The next one, the next psalm we're going to look at is Psalms 131. So turn your page or whatever it is, it's only 3 verses. I have calmed and quieted my soul. O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me. But I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord from this time forth forevermore. 2 key phrases I want to keep an eye on is heart is not lifted up. Eyes are not raised up too high. Now these phrases are referring to an idea of humility, reverence to God, where he's putting God first. Nothing in his life is past him, above him. It's just him. Now, the idea of humility and fear and worship goes together throughout the Bible. We see in the beginning, when God gave the 10 Commandments to the people, what was one of them? What was the first one? Put God first in your life, nothing else. When Jesus came on the earth, what did he say? Put God first, nothing else. Paul, in his writings to the churches, what did he continually stress? God first, everything else later. But see, so many times we have this idea, whether it be through human stubbornness or whatever, that we don't need God and God isn't first in our life. And that's a problem. But a bigger problem that we face is not a downright purposeful shift of God out of first place and us purposely putting things in. But it's the idea of having things accumulate that take over God's role. Stress. Stress is one of the hardest things that in our society we have to deal with every day at work. I know that my mom is an executive director of the Y. I know that she comes home sometimes and she's just done. She's drained. She's had a hard day at work, meetings, all this to take care of. She overlooks the building, all this stress that comes with it. I bet you can relate to that too. But it's hard. It's a stressful world we live in. And if we're not careful, the stress that we face could very easily interrupt our times of worship. How many times have we done the Lord's Supper, and as we're bowing our heads, bending down, we look down at our shoes and say, oh man, there's a hole there. I got this hole at work yesterday. Oh my goodness, at work yesterday I had this and this and this paper due. And on Monday I had to take this report, and I have to do this, and all of a sudden, the communion trays have passed. We've taken the Lord's Supper, but our mind wasn't there. We missed out an opportunity to truly experience God. Stress is a terrible part of our life, and it's something that we have to fight through. Self-discipline, self-control. These elements that God tells us about are something that is very practical, because we need to control our minds, control ourselves, enough to shut out the outside world so that we can truly get a deeper understanding and more out of our worship. I'd hazard to guess that in this 1-hour worship service, most of us, our minds have wandered, at least a few times, to things outside this building. But when we enter these doors, we need to shut out that outside world. We need to experience love of one another and our love for God. That's a beautiful thing. And if we can master it, we can not only get the most out of our congregational worship, but when we go home in our personal lives, and we shut out the outside world, we can truly learn more about Him. Without the stress of the outside world peering in, we can learn so much about God. There was a study done by Stanford, a Stanford psychologist. There's a school out in Boston, and it's a direct gateway to Harvard. It's one of the most prestigious schools in the country. A few years ago, they were experiencing large amounts of depression and suicide among kids because they just couldn't